insight to this really big case here that has grabbed a lot of attention nationally and even internationally as well. And we've been just seeing really outside of the courtroom, just a huge support for Karen Read, not only in person, but also online. We'll talk a little bit about that. But we want to bring in our next guest here of this hour. It is Nicole DeBord, a lawyer and legal analyst. Thanks so much for joining us here. And Nicole, this is such an interesting case. And really, I mean, it paints the picture of who are you going to believe? Is Karen Read a deranged cop killer, or is she this patsy at the hands of a huge police cover-up?
Exactly, and we heard really the great points that both sides were making in argument, a jury argument today. So the jurors have it. The jurors are going to have to decide what points both the prosecution and or the defense made that resonate most with them, and that is what will ultimately carry the day as to whether or not they decide that she's guilty or not guilty of this offense.
Yeah, and Nicole, I want to get your take here on Karen Read, as we've seen her so many times sitting at that table, and we've been taking glimpses throughout this trial here. But in particular, I want to ask you, so many times when the camera is on her, you're seeing her laugh with the attorneys, maybe even smiling. I mean, this is a very serious case, of course. We're talking about murder here. But does the jury look at that and say, okay, what's going on here a little bit?
They certainly can. I mean, it is something that jurors can't help but notice. What is the accused doing in the courtroom? How do they take in evidence? How do they react to the evidence? You know, what are they doing when a witness testifies about some fact? Are they making a face? I mean, so even though in this instance she didn't testify, jurors are looking at her body language. They're watching how she reacts to everything, including the arguments, and when they're walking in and out of the courtroom when nothing is happening in the courtroom yet. And what it means to each of them may be different. It's really impossible to guess what someone's body language means, the faces that they're making, or what they're even reacting to means. But jurors may have their own mind as to what they think it means, and it can certainly have an impact.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side of it, I mean, this case had a lot of drama. When we're talking about one of the lead detectives here in this case, talking and texting with others on his team, complaining about, oh, he didn't find any nude pictures of Karen Read on her phone or stuff like that. And that has to, when you hear that type of testimony for a jury, that has to weigh heavily as well.
Absolutely, right? One of the defense's claims, or the sort of basis of their defenses, is that this was a setup, that they pinned it on the girl, as we heard in closing arguments. And when you have someone on the investigative team who's responsible for collecting and bringing the court and the jurors evidence in the case and testimony in the case, doing and saying very unprofessional things in the course of the investigation, that most certainly is something that jurors will take into account as they decide the value of that evidence and that testimony. So it can be very damaging when some person who's responsible for collecting evidence behaves in that fashion.
Yeah, so true. And we just saw that the jury was sent home today, so they'll go back in the morning and start deliberating once again. But it should be just, I want to talk about these initial hours that the jury had today when they finally got to talk about this case there to themselves here. And now what is going on now inside, or as they're heading home here? Obviously they can't talk about it anymore, but what's going to happen now when they come back for day 2 and get a full day here of deliberating, if it takes that long?
So it's always impossible to guess what jurors are talking about or what they're doing in the back. Sometimes jurors are just taking a long time to decide who is going to be the foreperson, for example. Sometimes people have questions about what they think they heard in terms of evidence or testimony, and some of the other jurors may be helping them remember or telling them what they remember about it. They may be reviewing questions or instructions in the jury charge about what they're supposed to be considering. And deciding what those instructions mean to them. And they could just be taking time to go methodically through all of the points of evidence or pieces of evidence that they heard through the trial to decide whether or not those points or pieces of evidence mean something to them.
Yeah, that is so true, and such a good point there as well. I was mentioning earlier just about the support that Karen Reed has. I mean, she has this blogger named Turtle Boy who has become famous in his own right, really talking about the case and even going to jail for it at parts of the time, and spent 60 days in jail, has come out and continues to be on this trial and really discussing it. He was doing a live feed outside of it, and then has just a lot of supporters rallying around Karen Reed. Just how different is that to have so much support for a defendant and in a murder trial?
It's certainly unusual, right? I mean, compared to cases that we normally watch, you don't generally see a crowd of people outside taking a public stance on what the outcome of the verdict should be. Sometimes it happens, but it's certainly not the norm. And the court really has to take precautions in cases where it's anyone outside making a stand or trying to put their thumb on the scales of justice one way or the other, for or against an accused, to make sure that the jurors really don't deal with that contamination, and that the decision making that happens from the trial is only from the evidence that was presented to them in the courtroom and from the testimony that they heard, not from influences outside the courtroom.
That is so true and so well said. Nicole, thanks so much for joining us as always, as we wait to see when that verdict might happen. At least we know it won't happen today. So, Nicole, thanks so much for joining us as always. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You take care.